motivation. You got the strength inside. There's a fire in your heart, only you can ignite. It's a shine only you can show. Lights you up like a firefly in the summer sky. What makes you glow? What makes you glow?
All right, welcome in, welcome in. All right, so we were just listening to a little bit of the song Glow. This is one of our newer songs that just came out. Glow, one of my favorites, thinking about what motivates you. As everyone is joining in, feel free to think about what makes you glow and what motivates you this morning. You can enter in the chat box. We'll have a lot of collaboration this morning, talking back and forth, collaborating on the content of SEL and its benefits. So I'll be switching through a lot of different screens today. We'll be doing some activities. Good morning. I see a lot of people coming in. Good morning, Amy from New Jersey. So we'll be doing a lot of different activities, switching between screens. This is one of our Quaver Ready songs. So as everybody is joining in, I'll play it one more time. And when the song is over, we'll go ahead and start the session. Think about what makes you glow.
Sometimes it feels like you're just going through the motions. Every day has a list of things to do. The stress of life can test your emotions. How can you make it through? Got to discover your motivation. What makes you come alive? There's a fire in your heart, only you can ignite. It's a shine only you can show. What lights you up like a firefly in the summer sky? What makes you glow? Whoa, 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 whoa. Sometimes it feels like it's too hard to keep working, wondering will I ever be good enough? But you know success is not about being perfect. It's about never giving up. Got to remember your motivation. You've got the strength inside. There's a fire in your heart, only you can ignite. It's a shine only you can show. What lights you up like a firefly in the summer sky? What makes you glow? Whoa, 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 whoa.
All right, awesome. I hope you thought about what makes you glow. Feel free to enter that into the chat box. Like I said, we'll be collaborating a lot throughout this session. So we'll switch on over to the screen. Got everybody join in. I see a lot of people in the chat box. Good morning, good morning. All right, so welcome to Understanding SEL and its benefits. And this is for our Quaver Ready Back to School Kickoff 2023. So we'll go ahead and I'll introduce myself to you. My name is Nova Moss, and I'm an SEL curriculum specialist here at Quaver Ed. I've been here for about 2 years, and I have experience as an elementary school teacher. Before coming to Quaver Ed, taught kindergarten through 5th grade, primarily focusing on literacy, academic intervention, and behavior intervention, where I primarily worked with those elementary school kiddos, with my favorite being in kindergarten. Love the kiddos in kindergarten. I also have experience as an adjunct psychology instructor, so shifted gears from elementary to post-secondary, working with adults, which I currently still do that part-time now online at a local community college. And also, I got a little bit of experience as a residential mental health counselor at a nonprofit organization where I primarily worked with middle school age teenage girls, and did mental health counseling there. I'm currently a PhD candidate at Grand Canyon University, majoring in psychology with an emphasis in cognition and instruction, where my dissertation primarily focuses on social emotional learning and instructional strategies from teachers, which we'll kind of talk about today. I received my MS in psychology as well, and my BA in psychology from the University of Alabama, Roll Tide. I have a passion for working in education and psychology and just bridging the gap. And we'll talk about that a lot in this session as well, bridging the gap between social emotional learning and those teaching practices that we can do in the classroom. So like I said, throughout the session, feel free to come off mute, share. We'll be collaborating a lot throughout this session, and share in the chat box as well. So I see a lot of people still sharing in the chat box, which is great. Diane, good morning from California. What makes you glow is when you see a pride in students possess after they overcome a learning challenge. Yes, yes, and no matter how small it is. Yes, every little second, every little bit counts. Thanks, Diane. And oh, thank you, Ms. Truesdale. Yes, pending doctorate, ABD, trying to go ahead and get it over with. Okay, yes. Lorian, I hope I'm saying it right. Unique. Yes, I started to play Unique. I love that song, but I was like, no, let me play Glow since it just came out today. We just released that song. Yes, you're going to glow this year. And being with my little ones makes me glow. Okay, thanks, Tiffany. So I want to continue to hear from you all throughout the session. I want to learn a little bit more about you, just tell you a little bit more about myself. What is your role as an educator? And how many years of experience do you have? So go ahead and type that into the chat box. I'll give you a few minutes here to share out. I know a lot of people shared where they're from. What is your role as an educator and how many years of experience do you have? School counselor, Darlene, 3rd year. Tiffany, school counselor, okay, 16 years, wow. 1st year as a social worker, thanks, Nicole. Melissa, 3rd through 12th music teacher, awesome. Lakeisha, 18 years school counselor, wow. Lorianne, music teacher, 20 plus years, nice to meet you all. Ken, professional school counselor, 23 years. Awesome. So lots of school counselors. Lisa, 20 plus years as a school counselor, music teacher from Diane at a private Catholic school for 7 years. Olivia, K through 5. Awesome. Valerie, 25th year. Wow. 3rd and 5th grade, bilingual homeroom teaching. Sounds interesting. Professional school counselor, Miss Mabry. Yes, providing a nice music learning experience is always important, Christina. 24 years in education, Amy. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, nice to meet you all. Feel free to continue posting what your role as an educator is. Like I said, this will be a collaborative session, so you'll be entering a lot of things in the chat box throughout the session and coming off mute as well to collaborate. Okay, so we'll do a warm-up activity. This is one of my faves, Prepare Your Body. This can be found on the Quaver website as well, and I will pull it up in the 2nd tab, and this will be a lot of a stretching activity for music teachers. You can use this in your classroom as well, and you can change the beats per minute in the classroom. This can be used as like a warm-up activity where you kind of prepare your body, prepare your mind. You can also discuss the SEL benefits throughout this session, throughout this Prepare Your Body activity, discussing how you can manage your self-awareness, to be aware and prepare your mind and body for the learning experience. So I'll come off of here and share my other screen. And feel free to stand up, whatever you need to do to get ready to prepare your body. So the way this screen works is you just drag the stretches to the timeline, select the tempo, and then begin. So we'll go ahead and start practicing coming off mute. Someone just, or in the chat box rather, go ahead and type in the chat box which stretch you would like to see first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. Not everybody at the same time. This way we can go ahead and start collaborating on preparing your body. You can type it in the chat box. I'll start off with stretching up. Just type in the chat box what you would like to see next. Lean right, twist. Okay, I see a lot of twists. Okay, so y'all to twist. Hug. Okay, Christina. All right, so a hug. Keep them coming. Keep them coming. Lean right. Okay, and then lean back. Twist again. And one more. We'll do a hug. All right. Thanks, Lorianne. Okay. I like the numbers there. Okay. So get ready to prepare your body. We'll do the middle beats per minute, which is 60 beats per minute. We won't do 40 or 80. This will give us a good middle ground to start off on. So get ready to prepare your body. We're going to stretch up. Get ready. Awesome. Great job. So that was a little bit of preparing your body. I hope that you feel prepared and ready for this session even more. I have to come back to that. I love that one so much. Okay. So we'll go back to this session. So that was prepare your body. And for our agenda today, this is just a rough estimate of our time frame together, but we'll spend about 20 minutes with defining SEL, looking at the castle wheel, and discussing the key components for SEL. We'll spend about roughly 20 minutes discussing the benefits of actually using SEL, which is a big part of this session today. We'll take a 5-minute break, which will be more of a brain break, where you can still participate, step away if you need to, and come back during those brain break sessions. And then about 30 minutes identifying different resources. These will be throughout the session. We just looked at 2 different resources, the song and Prepare Your Body. So we'll spend about 30 minutes or so looking at different resources and how you can use these in your classrooms, in your counseling sessions, whatever, what have you. All right, so that's our agenda. And then looking more into the objectives, we'll define SEL, what it is. We'll define it and what it is for you and your school community. We'll also discuss key components of SEL, like student behavior, the benefits that you can see from the actual teacher SEL competencies and instruction, and how this can drive academic success. We'll also look a little bit at school culture and how SEL can benefit and affect school culture and the community as a whole. And then we'll continue to talk about the benefits of using SEL. So these are our objectives. I'll leave them here for just a second. All right. As far as materials go, you should have the handout that's created in the session. It's just pretty much an area for you to take notes and outline an organized way to make an outline of all the information that we discussed today. You need any extra paper, pencils, pens, go ahead and take those out. And then also, if you're using your electronic device, please feel free to open up another tab, take notes on there, whatever works best for you. So those are our materials. All right. So before we move on to the next part of the session, we're still opening up. We're going to discuss how summer provides a time for educators. I know this is a time for you to recharge and establish some healthy habits because this is a part of the teacher competencies and the educator competencies before we work with students. So I want you to go ahead and think as you're getting your materials ready and everything. Go ahead and type in the chat box how you're recharging this summer and how you're establishing healthy habits so that you can get ready to teach these SEL lessons to students and how you can help them to benefit, how you can benefit yourself before working with students, which is very important. So how are you recharging and establishing healthy habits? Go ahead and take a few minutes to type that into the chat box. All right, I also typed the question in the chat box for you all. We'll spend about 2 more minutes answering that question. Also, how may you recharge and establish healthy habits during this session? Reviewing what worked and what needs to be improved upon. Yes. That's so important because we don't want to continue doing the things that didn't work when we're trying to improve. Going on hikes. Yes. Spending time with twins. Awesome. Spending time on the beach. That sounds so much fun. It sounds like so much fun. Yes, routines are very, very important, Samantha. Melissa, eating chocolate chips. Olivia, one of my faves, traveling. Yes, being well rested. So important. Having exercise routines. Yes. Thanks, Christina. Nicole, taking time for yourself, walking, getting that physical activity. Yes, spending time with friends and family. Yes, a health journal. Yeah, that's so important. Trying to do summer reading. Yes. Lots of reflection. Yes, and we're going to talk about that in this session as well, how reflection can help you to reach those goals. Okay, so Ms. Truesdale needs some ideas of how to recharge. Yes, I hope we're providing you with some here in the chat box as well. More self-care, recharging and establishing healthy habits. I see exercising a lot with this group, meditating, reading, and spending time in nature. Yes, that's so important. Okay, awesome. Thanks for your participation. So I hope you're spending this time to educate yourselves by reading more of your books outside of the school and what's required for you during the school year, making sure you're traveling, making sure you're taking care of yourself. Self-care, like Lisa said, is so important. Doing more of that to make sure that you're recharging and getting ready to provide what students need when the school year comes. So thank you for that. We'll keep moving on. Let's see. All right. So as we dive in with understanding SEL, we'll talk a little bit about the definition of SEL and different areas that you can use SEL throughout your school community. So according to CASEL, which is the Collaborative for Academic and Social Emotional Learning, it's the overarching organization for social emotional learning. CASEL was pretty much created by a group of educators, different policymakers, and different people who pretty much saw a need for building adult and student relationships, as well as doing the work in prevention science. So if you think about things like anti-bullying, or if you think about things like say no to drugs, all of those prevention science coalitions, those were created in order to create SEL. So that's what it was based upon. So SEL is the process pretty much through which we acquire and apply different knowledge, different skills, different social skills and attitudes to help us in our daily lives. So as we're talking about CASEL, as we're talking about social emotional learning, we can not only think about the ways in which it benefits students, but also the ways in which it can benefit ourselves on a daily basis as adults. It can be seen in areas such as developing healthy identities, knowing yourself, managing emotions, which is big. We see that in students a lot, being able to manage their own emotions, being able to feel and show empathy for others. So not just being aware of self, not just being aware of what you need or what the student needs, but also being able to identify needs in others. And then maintaining supportive relationships, being able to gain relationships and have those certain relationships, important relationships over time. And then making responsible decisions, which I saw that was really, really big. We're working with students as well, making sure that they understand consequences after making decisions. I see Diane, you're like, yeah, we see that a lot, right? Okay, and I'm sure you've probably seen the CASEL wheel. It has your 5 core competencies that I just kind of discussed there. So self-awareness, which is being able to be aware of self, being able to monitor your own emotions, or having students be able to monitor and be aware of how they're really feeling, what's going on with themselves. And then self-management, being able to manage yourself on a day-to-day basis, from tasks to different behaviors as well. And then responsible decision making, kind of like what we just talked about, just being knowledgeable of those consequences and what may happen if you make this decision or this decision. So knowing the differences between that and being able to really, really decide on a whim on how to act and behave on a daily basis. Relationship skills, being able to talk to others, being able to form relationships. And the big thing here with relationship skills is being able to maintain those relationships over a certain period of time. And then being socially aware. So as we're looking at this CASEL wheel, I want you to go ahead and get your wheels turning and start thinking about which competency is most important to you personally, or which competency is most important to the work that you're doing as counselors, music teachers, things of that nature. And I want you to go ahead and type that into the chat box. Which competency is most important to you? You can even type why. Which competency is most important to students that you work with, and why? I'll also type that into the chat box for you. So okay, there it is. All right, I'll give you about 2 minutes to go ahead and answer that question. Self-awareness, okay. I agree. Social awareness. Yeah. Self-management. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of self-awareness and self-management. Self-awareness, okay. Trying to see trends here. Self-awareness. self-management, self-awareness, self-management. Okay, we're seeing some trends and we'll talk about why. All right. And some of you, I may be cold calling, so you can come off mute and tell me why in just a second. So be ready, be ready. Okay. I see a lot of trends here with this group, and I totally agree. When I first started working here at Quaver, when I interviewed, I heard a lot. The question was, okay, which competency is most important to you? And that is exactly what I said, self-management. And the reason why I said self-management is because I believe it all starts with yourself. And before you can interact with other people, before you can build relationships, before you can even make responsible decisions for yourself or for others, it all starts with how you manage yourself, how you manage your mind, how you manage your thoughts before any other competency. And like I saw, Samantha, you said all are important, which is so true. All of the competencies are intertwined. Yes, they're all intertwined. However, I think self-management, it all starts there because of your mind, your own personal mind. So I'll go ahead and cold call. Let's go with Diane. Can you tell us more about your response with relationship skills?
Sure.
Okay.
So for me, I don't know if you're talking to me, right?
Yes, Diane.
Okay.
Thanks.
So under relationship skills, for me, that's the most important thing that I sometimes miss because I only see students once a week. And particularly with my middle schoolers, most of them don't want music. And so building a relationship, I find, is most important with them than anything at all. If I can't build a relationship with them, or if I don't build one with them, that's what gets them to act out more, I'm finding, because they have an art teacher at my school who's been there for like 30 years and they absolutely love her and they worship her and it's because she's built a relationship with all of them and their families. And so for me, it's the relationship skills of me figuring out how to connect with them and build a relationship with them. Then I can start reinforcing more, because then they will, I don't know, then we'll develop like just a better relationship, I guess. I don't know how else to explain it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
That's mine.
Thank you. All right. So we heard from Diane and relationship skills, and I totally agree with Diane. You have to build those relationships first with students. That was something I saw the very first day with beginning to teach kindergarten with those kiddos, those kindergarten kiddos. If I didn't know, first of all, their names, which is what you'll see me doing a lot throughout this session, I feel like Diane and I have already connected. That's building some type of working relationship, right? So building that relationship, first of all, knowing their name, calling them by their names, knowing their families, knowing their hobbies. The first week of school, we were always coming in and saying, okay, what are your interests? I'm going to let you know my interests, and then you can share yours. And we're going to build some type of working relationship first before we can even go in and start learning treble clefs, or before we can go in and start learning all of the skills that we may need for the MAP test. So instead of talking about academics first, or instead of talking about, okay, this is what scores we need to get for the school year, this is what we have to do academically, knowing each other and focusing on those social relationship skills first is always important. And students will be more apt to listen to what you have to say. So yes, I agree totally. So we saw a trend here with self-management, self-awareness, and we heard from Diane with relationship skills. That's awesome. So throughout this session, I want you to continue to think about this graphic, think about the 5 core competencies and how they can be used to benefit you and your personal self and your students that you serve. So along with the 5 core competencies, you also see how social emotional learning affects other entities throughout the student's life and throughout your life as well. So it starts in the classroom as well. And then after classroom and focusing on instruction and classroom climate, then it bridges out to the school itself. So when we think about school-wide culture, that's where we can think about how SEL can benefit school-wide culture and the practices and policies of your specific school. And then after school-wide culture, from a school perspective, we start to think about families and we start to think about the caregivers of the students within your school. And that's how you can build those authentic partnerships. I know at my last school, we had a family engagement coordinator. And that family engagement coordinator made sure that families were aware of all of the social emotional learning benefits and all of the social emotional learning practices throughout the school. So after classrooms, we have that next level, which is schools, the next level, which is families and caregivers. And then after that, we think about the community, what's going on outside of the 4 walls of the school. So how can the community benefit with aligned learning opportunities for students as well? And we'll talk a little bit about community resources that we have on the site and how the community can benefit students as well through citizenship. All right, so that's the castle wheel. Okay. Lorianne, you start with social awareness, building a community. Yes, building a community is so important. You have to have other people on your team. Yes. Awesome. Okay, so now understanding SEL, we'll look a little bit at the research. We'll look at some evidence that can also be found on the SEL, the CASEL website, excuse me. So evidence shows that SEL does make a difference. We're using SEL all the time, whether we're building relationships with students, whether we're managing ourselves, whether we're being aware of ourselves. You can use SEL throughout the day and not even realize it. So students participating in SEL at school have shown decreased emotional distress, fewer externalizing behaviors, and improved pro-social behaviors. So I want you to think about this quote here, this evidence. I'll cold call someone else in the chat and you can tell me what this means to you or what you have seen as far as evidence in your school. We'll go with somebody whose name starts with an S. I'll give you a few seconds to think. Samantha Bucher, are you here? Think about this quote, and if you can, come off mute and let us know what it means to you with students participating in SEL. Give Samantha a few more seconds. I think you can. Okay. If the sound is not working for you, I see you coming off mute. I can't hear you though. If it's not working, please feel free to type it in the chat box. Yeah, you can just type it in the chat box, that's fine. But I did see that you came off mute. It acts a little funny, so it's okay. All right, we'll give Samantha a few more seconds to type in the chat box what this means for her school, and I will read it out for her. Okay. I know for me, as an educator, as a teacher in elementary school, students that actually participated in social emotional learning, they had fewer visits to what we call the restoration room. And that was pretty much a room where students would come in if they needed to have time away from the classroom. They would come into that quiet area and pretty much decompress and reflect on something that may have happened in the classroom during that time. But we had fewer visits to the restoration room at my school with students participating in SEL. So we saw a lot of students begin to, I guess I would say, be more aware of themselves and their actions. Okay. Samantha says she agrees we're pushing for more school-wide SEL to make a greater impact. Great. You teach SEL classes weekly. Awesome. But this year it had less time for small groups. Yes. Okay, so I can see what that looks like as far as interventions go. I will share one of our intervention strategies here or resources here in a little while. So yes, that's what we see a lot with time for small groups. Yes. Yes, for the kids that need to be targeted. Yes, yes. Awesome. Thank you so much, Samantha. Okay. Incentives for good behavior. Awesome. And kids love alone time with you, Lorianne. Like, they just love it. They're like, oh, I get some time to spend some time with Miss Moss, or I get a chance with one-on-one with Miss Sealy. I know they love it. And that's their own incentives. Yes. And then the focus is on them. Yes. Yes, they get to play with anything they want. Oh my gosh. Yes, they love it. Okay. Thanks, Samantha and Lorianne. Okay, we'll go to another quote. Evidence shows that SEL makes a difference with social emotional learning. It can reduce symptoms of anxiety in the short term. So I've heard a lot of educators throughout sessions, they're speaking on anxiety and how students are able to manage those feelings of anxiousness. And I'll also show you how our Quaver Plus competencies can come into play as well for those benefits of SEL. And then SEL research confirms that it has long-term benefits as well with academic achievement. So teachers are seeing a lot more self-management in the areas of growth mindset versus fixed mindset. We'll talk about that in the Quaver Plus competencies as well, and social emotional skills development and well-being and behaviors. So that is our research for SEL, and these quotes can also be found on the CASEL website. And now it's time for a brain break. So use this time to step away if you need to, and we'll also engage in a brain break activity, which can also be found on the site, and it's called Be True to Yourself. So I'll stop sharing my screen for the next 5 minutes. And we'll engage in a brain break of Be True to Yourself. Okay, here it is here. And this is called the Truth Cube. So this is an activity that can be used with students where they'll be in pairs. They can be in pairs. This is one of our Quaver social activities. And this is where students can form 2 circles, inside and outside, and pair with another student, for example, an elbow partner. I know we're doing this virtually, so you won't necessarily be in pairs, but you can still participate in the actual screen. So this is the Truth Cube, and then you can read the example and discuss. We'll discuss in the chat box. Raquel, you're struggling with connection audio. Okay, thank you for letting us know. And then you can click the box. All right, so I want you personally to think about your strengths. You're being true to yourself here. Look at the prompts. Think about your strengths. And also you can be thinking about how you can use an activity like this with your students. So think about your strengths during this brain break time and why you like your strengths, a time you showed your strengths. This is a part of our self-awareness band. Self-awareness. Think about your strengths, a time you showed your strengths. Feel free to write that down, type in the chat box. And then we'll go to the next part of the truth cube. Have about 4 more minutes for the break as well, for the brain break. So do whatever you need to do. If you need to step away, that is fine. Also be thinking about how this ties into self-awareness for students. Okay, this is one part of the truth cube. I'll go to the next one so that you'll kind of see how this screen works. What are your interests? My interests are, or my interest is, and why do you like that interest? A time you showed interest was when, I love the prompts here on this screen, especially for students in elementary school. This is great to go ahead and have those sentence stems and those prompts. And a statement at the end stating, I am blank and I am true to myself. Awesome. A few more seconds on interests. Okay, after interest, personality. My personality is blank. I like my personality because, so a lot of self-awareness happening here. A time I showed my personality was when okay. And we'll do one more here. And this is an awesome part of the screen as well. If you've gone through all of the cubes with students and you've explained each of the parts of the truth cube, they can create their own. And I see that students love being able to have that autonomy. You can call someone to the front of the screen, or if you're working one-on-one, I know we have a lot of counselors. If you're working one-on-one during interventions or small groups, you can have them choose one entity of themselves that they want to share with you. So instead of using the prompts or using the examples on the screen with the truth cube, they can come up with something that they like on their own. So it would be, I like my blank because blank. Very simple, very quick activity that can be shared with students in order to realize, to have more self-awareness. And then on the screen, you can also see examples. My values are kindness, love, and support. I like my values because they represent how I treat others, which is so important. A time I showed my values was when I helped my elderly neighbor plant her flowers. It's so sweet. And then the student would put their name at the bottom and show how they are staying true to themselves. This is a part of one of our Flavor social activities. All right, so brain break time is over. Okay, and we'll continue on with the next part of the session. So we talked a little bit about what SEL is. Now we're going to talk about the benefits. All right, so we hear a lot about behavior, and SEL is not just behavior. It has so many different entities. Behavior is just one of the outcomes that we can see from SEL. So this is one of our screens where it can help you kind of see the benefits to student behavior outcomes. So this screen is self-discipline for the future. We see that in the chat box, we talked a lot about self-management, self-awareness, and how we think that collectively as this group, we think that that's one of the more important competencies. So here on this screen, students would just see how self-discipline can affect their future. I know we talked a lot about consequences. We talked a lot about, how one behavior can influence another and how it can influence outcomes. How can it influence what happens next? So a part of the screen is having goals for students. So how can self-discipline help you achieve a certain goal? How can you be tempted to give up? So how can you stay motivated? What will help you to have sacrifice, and how you will feel when you have accomplished said goal. So this can be any goal in a school setting. It could be an academic goal, or it could be a behavioral goal, especially since we have a lot of counselors working with students with various behaviors. I know you're most likely aware of the ABC tracker. And I know someone typed in the chat box about wanting to have more time with students one-on-one, which is so important. I think that was, yes, Samantha, when you shared that out in the chat box. Thank you so much. She talked a lot about wanting to have more one-on-one time with students. So for students who may have those tier 2 or tier 3 behaviors, or need those tier 2 and 3 interventions, this could be a useful tool. And I'll go ahead and show you more on this certain screen so you can kind of see how it works. So if you go on over to the Quaver site, this is our ABC data tracker here. And it pretty much shows a spot where you can type in or write in the antecedent. So what happened before the child engaged in the behavior, the actual concerning behavior itself, and the consequence. So I'll give you a few minutes now to kind of look at this and kind of play around with it on your own paper, write in some examples as to how you may use this in your own sessions with students. So look at the ABC tracker and just kind of write out and take some notes as to how this could be used in your settings. I'll give you a few more minutes to look at it here. You can even type in the chat box how you may use this as well, and then we'll go on over to a different screen. Yes, this can be found if you do have access, Ms. Mabry, to the Quaver site. It's under the interventions. Yes, this is a part of our interventions. You're welcome. Yes, there's plenty of great resources on there, especially when you're dealing with small groups. Okay. All right, I'll close that out and go back to the screen. And then also here, I want you to look at how self-discipline for the future can be used with students. Yes, Ms. Matthews says this would be great if students are sent for a visit. Yes, that's a great tool to use with students. I know it's a little bit smaller here. Hopefully you can still see it. Yes, thank you. Thank you. So think about how you could possibly use this other screen with self-discipline for the future with students and how it could benefit behavior outcomes. I'll give you a few more minutes now to type in the chat box. How could these screens, or how could this benefit behavioral outcomes for students? And then we'll talk about it a little bit more. Goes. Okay, continue to type into the chat box how you'll see those behavioral outcomes by using SEL. And just a little background knowledge: as educators, we understand the overall importance of setting expectations. I think that's really, really big on the first day. I know we kind of talked about creating relationships with students, but setting expectations with students and having students to uphold those expectations is big. So making sure, in order to see those behavioral outcomes, they know on day one what it is that is expected of the school community, what's expected of the teacher, what's also expected of the counselors, or anyone school-wide or community-wide or family-wide that's expected of the student. So when students don't meet these expectations, it's easy to say, oh, they're being disrespected. They're disrespecting the school community. They're disrespecting the teacher, whoever may be impacted. But this is not always the case. Sometimes that might not be the student's intent to disrespect a teacher or anybody that's included in the school community, but that student may have a lack of social emotional learning skills. So this is why the student may behave a little bit differently than what we expect. So these examples, like I said, can be used as particular screens throughout your lessons or throughout your sessions, especially that ABC data tracker with using those small groups and kind of documenting behaviors and having students be able to visualize, okay, this is what happened before the behavior. This is the actual behavior, and then this is the consequence to kind of limit those targeted behaviors. Christina says she's a music teacher and she can share this tool with PE and library instructors, yes, to help figure out if there's a behavior challenge or pattern. Ooh, I love that word, Christina. Yes, she says pattern, and that's so important. When you start noticing patterns, you start saying, oh, okay, this is what this XYZ person does on the regular. How can we kind of change that? How can we kind of change that targeted behavior? And it also helps when we're thinking about SEL with self-awareness and self-management. Ms. Truesdale says the open-ended questions for self-discipline is great. They're great. And she can see these questions more so for intermediate. Yes, and they can be modified. Yes. Yes. Knowing strengths is important. So acting off of strengths and positive framing is so important as well. Awesome. Yes, acting off of those strengths. Okay. All right, thank you for sharing. All right, so we talked a little bit about the benefits to student behavior outcomes there. And just know that SEL, educating our students with social emotional learning, allows us to level up the playing field for students. And in this way, no matter what a child may be going through, whether it's at home or whether they're going through something at school, they'll have the needed tools that they'll need to help them overcome whatever difficult situation that they may be facing. And when the majority of students are meeting those behavioral expectations, more academic learning just takes place, right? Okay. All right, one of my faves here, benefits to teacher competencies. So we talk a lot about students all the time, and there are different competencies, but how can this apply to teachers? How can the 5 competencies apply to teachers? So I'll give you a few minutes to type that into the chat box. And take your notes as well if you need to write this down. How do you think SEL benefits teacher competencies? So think about yourself. Think about the teachers that you work with. As an adult, think about adult SEL. And I'll also type into the chat box. How do you think SEL can benefit teacher competencies? Or how have you seen SEL benefit yourself in the past? A few more seconds. All right, as people are typing, okay, we'll discuss it definitely. As people are typing and thinking about past ways SEL has benefited themselves or the teachers they work with, we'll also talk about how SEL skills are also reinforced for educators ourselves. So for me personally, I think about how, okay, as I'm looking at these 5 competencies, my most important one is self-management and self-awareness. Well, I would say those 2. All of them are important. But for me, it would be self-awareness. Being aware of how I feel before I even go in and start working with students was also important for me. So before I even step foot in the door of the school, I always would have to monitor my emotions, monitor how I feel. And that was the way that that competency benefited myself. Tiffany says that they help us all have better understanding of how to reach the whole child. Yes. And addressing issues or concerns that can be addressed as a whole class. Yes, I love the concept of building community. So in order for us to come together, or as educators, or in order for classrooms and students and teachers to have that relationship like we talked about earlier, we have to have a better understanding. So being competent ourselves as educators. Ms. Mabry says, determining different ways to address a concern. Yeah, so being in the know and saying, okay, this is how I should address this based on what I see or based on what's happening right now. Having your own social emotional learning competency to know how to even talk to students or how to interact with students, and not just students, how to interact with families, caregivers, or how to interact with other colleagues throughout your school. That's very important. I love that, Ms. Mabry. And then, okay, while it's present in the classroom, we are sensitive to our students' needs and potential struggles. This in turn makes them feel safe. Yeah, and we're going to talk about that safety aspect. It helps them to feel safe and more likely to take risks and participate. Yep, that is so true, Diane. They're not going to participate if they feel afraid or if they don't feel like they can trust the environment or the teacher or their classmates. Yep, community is key. So it's all kind of intertwined and bridged together when we think about all of the competencies. So when we think about the competencies as educators, educators who teach SEL, whether you're a counselor, a teacher, or anybody in the school, you have to model these behaviors in order to be able to see them in our students and have additional reminders on how to apply those strategies to overcome personal and professional challenges. So things that may be going on with you at home or personally, or different professional challenges as you do your work as an educator. Having those teacher competencies as educators ourselves is important. It can increase self-awareness, like I said earlier, and by encouraging teachers to develop a deeper understanding of their own emotions. And they're also reinforced for educators as they are taught. So as you're teaching students, hopefully you're also learning more and more about the SEL competencies yourself. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at an activity here, and it's called Tug of Mindset. I'll come off of sharing my screen here, and how this activity can be used throughout the classroom or for yourselves based on the content. Tug of Mindset. Okay. This is also a social activity that can be used in small groups, and it's designed for students to discuss the topic here, which will be growth versus fixed mindset in greater depth and be able to collaborate when appropriate. So here on this screen, the students would just listen to the definition of a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. I'll play it for you.
A fixed mindset believes that physical and mental abilities can't be changed. If someone has a fixed mindset, they might make excuses about why they don't want to try something new or challenging.
Okay, so if they have a fixed mindset, they're pretty much going to be closed off and not going to think that anything can change or anything can grow. So here is the definition of growth mindset.
A growth mindset believes that physical and mental abilities can be changed with effort and the right strategies. If someone has a growth mindset, they confront challenges and see failure as an opportunity to grow.
Yeah, so one of the big key points here with growth mindset is seeing failure as an opportunity to just grow. So not looking at it as, oh, I failed and that's it. No, I failed and how can I grow from this, or how can I become better? So that's fixed mindset versus growth mindset. And you can be thinking about how we as educators may have fixed versus growth mindset when even teaching SEL competencies to students or teaching whatever content to students. And the next screen, the next part of the screen would be listening to examples of the fixed and growth mindset. For example, work on a math problem, drawing a picture, making new friends. And we see this a lot with students. They struggle a lot when interacting socially with their friends and making new friends at school. So we'll listen to a fixed mindset version of making new friends.
I'm not good at making friends.
So that would be a fixed mindset. And on the other side, which is growth mindset, the students would just type in or write in what would be a better way, or what would be a growth mindset way to think about making new friends. So I'll give you a few seconds to type in the chat box. What would be a way to make this statement by using a growth mindset for students? Instead of saying, I'm not good at making new friends, or I can't make friends. Yes, it's challenging, but I'm getting better at it. Right. Christina says today, I will try to make a new friend. Yeah, taking it step by step. Yeah, that is so important. So looking at it from a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And I also want you to keep in mind, as adults, for adult SEL and our competencies, how can we have growth mindsets when working with the students that we work with on a daily basis? So maybe, for example, this student hasn't met this behavioral goal yet, or this student hasn't quite mastered social awareness yet, but they will, having that growth mindset. So this is a way that social emotional learning can benefit teachers as well as students. Okay. We'll go back to our screen here. Okay, so those are the benefits to the teacher competencies. Okay. And now we'll talk about benefits to academics. So not just teacher competencies, not just putting it all on the student, but also academically. How can social emotional learning impact students academically? This is just an example of what our lesson plans typically look like for each of the lessons that you may see on the Quaver site. We'll go in to this screen here and just talk a little bit about what it means for academic achievement. Let me show my screen here. Okay, so just academically, we start to think about, okay, the behavioral goals that we want students to see, but also academically, it's a crucial part of student success. And so with academic achievement, we may think of our different content areas, whether it be math, whether it be literacy. How can students benefit from SEL academically? It's the ability to meet those long-term and those short-term goals, by increasing academic achievement and building student self-esteem so that they have the confidence to even do the academic work that we need them to do, and being able to have organizational skills. So this is, like I said, this is just one lesson plan that can be used with balancing listening and talking. So while students are reaching success in their classrooms, how can they balance being able to listen, and how can they balance being able to actually participate in a lesson? And this is also helping other competencies as well. As we talked about, they're all intertwined, they all work together. So building a stronger understanding of self and academic achievement can be found here on a lot of our different screens. We also have another screen called What is Success? And it basically helps students to define and practice the application of academic success and what it means to them. Okay, so they can define success in that's on that particular screen, and discuss different concerns that they may have academically and strategize how to plan for the future. Tiffany, no, that's not Tiffany. It's Tuesday. Okay, that was something from the last one. So be thinking about how social emotional learning can impact students academically, and type that into the chat box now. I'll give you a few minutes, a minute or so, to type into the chat box. How do you think it can benefit students academically? For me, it would be that self-management band as well. How can they manage themselves? How well can they stay organized? How can they manage their own emotions? I always think about how hard it was for me as a student with learning math. I'm not a math person at all, but how I managed my emotions and how I had those metacognitive moments to say, okay, hey, I need to have a growth mindset. I don't have it yet, but I will in the future if I keep working at it. So how can I manage my emotions? How can I manage how I feel about this certain thing that may be difficult? How can it benefit academics for you? I'll give you some think time. Okay, as you're still thinking about academics, because we're almost done now, we're going to go to the last two parts, which are school culture and community. So how can it benefit school culture? Next, Tiffany says for academic self-management of time, yes. Thoughts, actions, and behaviors, yes. And motivation, yes. How can students stay motivated? How can they stay motivated to improve academically or have that growth or that fixed mindset? Yes, it's so important. Thank you, Tiffany. Positive self-talk, yes. How can I keep talking to myself? So I always think about those metacognitive moments. How can I talk to myself internally, positively and not negatively? One big key part here is not being an inner critic, but being an inner coach. So how can we teach students through social emotional learning to not criticize what they're doing academically, but how to be their own personal coach when the teacher may not be able to be their coach, but how can they be a coach to themselves metacognitively? Yes, positive self-talk. Thank you. So now with school culture, we discussed the different aspects related to the benefits of using SEL in schools. But it's also important to discuss how SEL can benefit requirements such as classroom and school-wide behavior and modeling for students. When I think about school culture, I think about how well social emotional learning is modeled to our students. How can we as educators show them all of the ways? How can we show them how to talk to themselves positively when we may not be able to? How can we show them how to interact with their peers in a positive way? So this is where educator satisfaction and school culture comes into play. So when we integrate SEL into the school community, Then we have a positive school culture that can be developed and promoted positively through social interactions where students can academically thrive and socially thrive. So, school wide and classroom modeling is important and it's been proven to be effective. So, this is where educator satisfaction comes into play, and student teachers and everyone involved in the daily school structure is involved in SEL. And the benefits can be seen when we think about the routines from when they're coming into their classrooms, when they're walking into the door. That can be seen in their routines, the school hour procedures, and in the overall cohesiveness of the school community. So that's school culture. And then we'll move on to school community. So SEL can encourage collaboration and teamwork. And students who engage in these practices develop a sense of belonging, not only to their school community, but we can think about the wider community. So the things happening outside of the four walls of the school. When I think of SEL, I often think of the benefits for civic engagement. So how students can be active citizens within their community and create a sense of responsibility. How can they become responsible citizens towards the communities that they're in? And students learn how to be active participants in their community through things like community service, learning to advocate for themselves as well as important causes. And SEL can also help with contributing to positive community development. So those are some things to think of as well when we think of the benefits that SEL has to its community. All right, we are down to the last break. We probably won't have a lot of time to go through the entire 5-minute break, but I did want to show you this screen for our brain break. Let's see. Stop sharing and share this one. There it is. And this is just another cool brain break that can be used with students. It's called a moment to reflect. So with a moment to reflect, I want you to go ahead and start reflecting yourselves as we get ready to close throughout this session. And this could be a great screen that could be used with students. Just taking the time to reflect, think about your goals, think about your plans. This is in a yearbook type screen, style screen, which is very interesting and unique for students to see. But think about your goals for the school year. Think about your plans, how you will implement SEL throughout your classrooms. Go ahead and start typing that in the chat box. Think about the tough stuff. Take a moment to reflect. And then I'll see what you all share about in the chat box. What are your goals for the new school year as it involves SEL? What are your plans on how you're going to incorporate SEL and all those 5 core competencies? How are you going to teach self-management? How are you going to model self-management? I'll also put this in the chat box. All right. So I typed those questions into the chat box. Go ahead and start answering those. I would love to hear another voice. We heard from Diane. If your mute button is not working, go ahead and share into the chat box, and then I'll have one of you come off mute and let us know after your reflection. What are your plans after taking a moment to reflect? We'll also talk about that last activity after the reflection. Tiffany says she looks forward to utilizing the tools, using more interventions. These are also additional reflection questions. Okay. I also like the idea someone had of using the music for our songs to start the day school-wide. Yes, starting the day off the right way is always important for kids. Setting the tone in small group. That's really, really big in the SEL world. Interventions, especially with counselors. Yes, plan according to goals created for the school year. Create areas of concerns based on data. Yes. So we talked a little bit earlier about patterns that we've seen in students. Yes. Okay, continue sharing out. And then lastly, we talked about the benefits to the community. This is also one of our school-wide and community activities that is now shared on the site. It's brand new. And this activity is one of our community resources. So we think a lot about how can we engage the community and include the community in on SEL. And it takes a team. We talk a lot about community. So on this screen, it's now on the Quaver site, which is very cool. There are conversation corners where we can talk about what SEL may look like at home. So for example, how can you show gratitude at home? How can you show it at school? And how can students show it in the community? So we want to think about how a family is like a team, how our work family is our team. And then think about those goals that I see here in the chat box that you've already started to type. Think about the goals that you have together. And how can we improve on SEL together? And how can we accomplish these goals? Yes, try to incorporate some reflection into the lessons. Yes, it's very important, not just for us as educators, but for the students alike to reflect on what they learn and how can they use this for new goals. Yes, I love Unique, Lorianne. That's one of my faves. Grateful, yes, it's a great song as well. Yes, and working with the counselor. So yes, that community aspect, making it a whole school-wide SEL. Yes. Okay. So as we close out, I definitely want to thank you for your time and thank you for your collaboration. Thank you for sharing out. And I hope you have a stronger understanding of the benefits of SEL curriculum, the Quaver SEL curriculum, different strategies you have learned about today, and different benefits of SEL, and how SEL can positively impact your students and contribute to a successful school culture. So be sure to take a deep dive into that castle wheel with the competencies, the activities that we completed today that are on the site. I mentioned 2 new activities. Those community resources are up now in our new song, Glow. So that's really, really cool. And just feel free to check out different things on our Quaver website where you can learn more about SEL and its benefits. So thank you all for joining in. Thank you so much. And that concludes our session today.